Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. I show family cooking and cooking for two and sometimes vegan recipes. And I also do sewing projects and some craft projects. If you're a returning watcher or viewer, thank you for supporting me. Last year, for one of my Christmas trees, I decorated it with pink and gold ornaments. It was then that I got the idea to make clothespin ballerinas to decorate a Christmas tree. Many years ago, I had made the soldiers' ornaments out of clothespins. These are over 30 years old, and so this one has lost his sequin epaulets on his shoulders, but they are painted in red and blue with black shoes. I found some braid to wrap around the neck and over the chest to look like a uniform with a painted gold stripe for a waistband. I needed twice as many clothespins for this design, as the arms are made out of a second clothespin. He has a painted face and a pom-pom for his hat, which I secured a hanging string underneath the pom-pom. If you'd like to do this along with me, here is what you're going to need. Some kind of vessel to hold water. I have a little painting thing here that I use, but a paper cup filled or plastic cup filled with water will work just fine. I use 2 paintbrushes, a thin liner brush, and then one that was a little thicker. I bought 1/2 inch or 12.7 millimeter pom-poms to use for the ballerina's hair that she ties into a bun. And I also purchased these chenille stems or pipe cleaners in a tan color that are 12 inches or 30.4 centimeters long. I bought this ribbon that I ended up not using, and I bought this tulle lace that was already gathered to use for the tutu, and I bought wooden clothespins. I have 3 or 4 paints here that I bought 3 of them. One I already had. So one is a buff or flesh color, one is a light pink, one is a hot pink, and one is a black. When I went to the craft store on Black Friday, I was looking for something that I could embellish the waist of the tutu or her hair somehow. Most of these things looked like they would be too big, and the things that looked small enough I couldn't find in pink. They had them in purple and orange, but I didn't want those. So if you go down the aisle, the notions or the accessories aisle in your sewing center or craft store, there are all kinds of things that you could maybe use for the tutu. And if you can't find anything, just get some netting or some tulle, and you can make your own. I also purchased a thin tip Sharpie marking pen to use for the facial features, the ears, and the eyes. You'll also need a paper plate to mix your paint on. I use these plastic bags as a place to keep my table clean. And make sure you have a paper towel or rag handy. First of all, I marked the spot where I wanted the holes drilled, and my husband drilled holes in these clothespins for me. I can't remember what the size was of the drill bit that he used, but it was either the smallest one or the second smallest one that he had. Just make sure that the chenille stem that you purchased will fit through the hole. I bought a flesh-colored paint to use on these clothespins, and I didn't realize when I bought it that it was the exact same color as the clothespin. So you can either get a darker color or you can leave them plain. I think they'd be perfectly fine just left plain, or you can paint them like I did. And after I did a couple of them, then I added a little bit of pink, the light pink, to the paint and mixed it up and painted the rest of them. I'm just using an acrylic paint that you can find at the craft store. The flesh colored is called a buff, and the light pink is called light baby pink. But different brands of paint will have different names for their colors. So I am just painting these completely and then letting them dry until I'm ready to do the next step. The light pink paint that I bought was too light. I thought that it would not be enough of a contrast against the flesh color. And the dark pink that I bought was too dark for my liking. So I mixed a little bit of the dark pink in with the light pink and mixed it up well. And then now I am just painting on the toe shoe and the suit, the body suit, or her leotard. These plastic grocery sacks worked really well to put the painted item on, even better than in the past. I've used newspaper, and it quite often will stick, but the paint will not stick to these. Or if it does, it just pulls right off, and it doesn't mar the paint in any way. So I really liked using these plastic grocery sacks for this. I'm just painting the toe shoes on now. It's kind of like painting on a French tip fingernail if you're a manicurist or do your own nails. I did end up going back and touching up some of these with a thinner brush, going up a little higher on the sides than I originally did. But paint it however it looks good to you. To paint the leotard, I went underneath the drilled holes and just painted a straight line all the way around the clothespin. And then I made it look like a bathing suit around where the legs are. But if you just drew another or painted another straight line, that would be good enough. You're not going to really see it underneath the tutu. But just go ahead and paint underneath those armholes there. This would be a great gift stuck in some flowers for somebody a little girl or a big girl that dances in the Nutcracker. I am going to cut these chenille stems in half, but this is how I envision the arms to look. And I am going to have them go up and around the head, but you could, if you're a ballerina, you could have them in any kind of pose that you wanted to or that you like. I just think that these are so funny, and when I hold them like this, they look like fingernails. I have a very fine point brush now, and so I am just doing the ribbons that cross over on the toe shoe and then the ribbon that goes straight across. And I don't have a very steady hand. This is very forgiving paint in that if you mess up, all you have to do is just take a paper towel that you've got right by your side and dip it in some water and wipe it off. As long as it hasn't set or dried, it will wipe right off. If you wanted to be fancier and if you have way more patience than I do, you could get that really, really thin ribbon like they sell at Michael's or Hobby Lobby, and you could tack that at the top of the crossed ribbons and use that as your straight across ribbon and tie it in a bow. That would be way more fussier to do, but oh so cute if that's your jam. And if you have way more patience than I do. So right here, I just wiped off that line that I made with some water on a paper towel, and I am going to try again. It was enough for me just to paint these on, and so pick a day when you're feeling good and you don't care if you make mistakes, because you probably will make them, but they wipe right off if you need to wipe them off. Okay, so this turned out good, and I only have 27 more toe shoes to paint. Be sure and wash your paintbrushes with warm soapy water after every painting session, because this is what happens when you don't. To put some of the facial features on, I just used that thin point Sharpie, and I put ears above where the armholes were. Just a simple like question mark looking thing. And then for the eyes, I just did these simple eyes because I'm not an artist. Later on in the video, you'll see I did get a little more adventurous with the eyes that I made, but most of them were just simple like this. Now I am just cutting the chenille stems in half, and I have 14 of these clothespins painted, and so I am just cutting 7 in half. This is the lightest colored, flesh colored pipe cleaner that I could find at my craft store. If you wanted to make the paint a little darker on the ballerinas to match the chenille stem, you could. I didn't want to buy a lot of paint, and so I just kept it the buff color and the chenille stems a little darker. You can make your paint a little darker to match the chenille stem, but I didn't, and I think that it looks just fine and will look fine on a Christmas tree. I've gone ahead here and painted around the ear and around the forehead of my ballerina to make hair. And I'm just doing black hair because that's the only color pom-pom that I could find in hair color. But you could do blonde and red if you wanted to, or brown. To make the mouth, I had this idea that I was going to use these sewing pins that have the bubble top on them, and I was going to make hearts and drag out the heart so that it looked like a mouth. But you'll see that it's always good to practice what you're going to paint first on your paper plate or a piece of paper to see if it's going to work. And I didn't like the way these looked. Some of them I ended up doing just a tiny, tiny heart for a mouth, and others I used the bigger pin and made just a simple dot out of the hot pink for a mouth. And these are what my practice mouths looked like. Here's one that is a heart, and she looks like she's had lip fillers. This paint is very forgiving if you get it before it dries. Just keep a paper towel or a rag handy, and if you need to wipe it off, you can just dip your paper towel into water and just wipe it off and try again. The Sharpie marker won't wipe off, so if you goof up on that, you'll need to paint over it. But the paint, as long as you get it before it dries, you can wipe it off and start over. So if you can't see well enough what I'm doing, you make a heart by dipping the top of the pin into paint and making 2 dots on the top and 1 on the bottom. And some of these look sort of like mouths. Some of them don't, but I think it gives each one of them character or personality. And you can also use the pinhead dots painted or dipped into black paint to make details on the eyes, which I am doing here. Here is a soulless zombie-looking ballerina, but with 2 pinhead dots. It changes her looks completely. If you had some miniature artificial flowers that you wanted to put on her hair or hot glue next to the bun, that would look pretty. Or if you had some miniature crowns, I had some with my scrapbooking supplies, but I couldn't find them. You could hot glue that next to the bun. Or you could make your own little crown by turning wire onto a toothpick, and that would look cute. And now I am just going to attach the chenille pom-pom to the top of the head using a glue gun. I had wanted to find smaller poms than this. This was the smallest that I could find. I think if you can find the smaller ones, it might look better. I don't know. It's entirely a matter of preference. But these don't look too bad. You could also maybe trim them if you wanted to with scissors, but it's not that big of an issue. I just didn't want her to look like a soldier wearing a soldier hat. So I did place it slightly askew on the head. This lace or trim that I found at Joann craft stores was just perfect for the tutus, but it was a little longer than I wanted it to be for this size of clothespin. So I trimmed off the gathered part and trimmed it down, and then went ahead and used a basting stitch on my sewing machine and made my own gathered tulle tutus. I sewed as close to the edge as I could without going off. And I trimmed this to about 1 1/4 inches in width. So if you can't find a trim or a lace like this that would work for the tutu, you could buy some tulle that is on a spool, or you can buy it as yardage and just buy like a small amount and then cut it down to 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch in width, and then baste it on your machine like I did. If you've never machine basted anything before, just remember to leave a long enough piece of thread at the end that you can pull for the gather at both ends, actually. If you don't, then it will pull apart and you won't have a gather. So yours may look like this and not look straight, but you don't need to get upset about that. It's not going to show. Just go ahead and pull one of the threads and start gathering and making it even, and then you'll have a wonderful strand of gathered tulle that you can use as tutus. I probably used 2 to 2.5 yards of this tutu material. And you need to be careful because buying a trim like this can be very expensive. When I got to the checkout stand, she told me that it was $10 per yard. But I lucked out that day and it was on sale for $3 per yard. So I got it for the price. I got all 3 yards for the price of one normally priced yard. Here is the ribbon that I had bought to put around the waistband of the tutu to cover up the raw edge. But when I tried it around it, I didn't care for it. So that's an option for you. This is the first tutu that I glued on, and it's a little longer than the rest of them because it was my first one, and I decided that I liked them a little shorter, but I kept this one, and it's very fluffy, and so you may decide that you like a longer one better. Toothpicks are extremely helpful with working with hot glue and fabric, and especially lace where there's nothing in between the hot glue and your fingers. So be careful, you can get some nasty burns from that. I'm just using my hot glue gun to glue this on. And there she is. She's doing a little dance for you because she's happy to finally be done. Almost done. There goes the chenille stem to make her some arms. And you can pose these any way you'd like. I just decided to do both arms over the head and twist tie them closed. And then when I put them on my tree, I put a ornament hanger around it, around the top part. And there she is. So now I have 13 more to do, but it didn't take me hardly any time at all to do it. I had to baste and gather more tutu material. So once I did that, I was ready to glue the rest of them together. Here I am, ready to hot glue the tutu onto the ballerina. And I've gathered the tutu to the way that I like it. I put just a little bit of hot glue on the front and then put the gathered part on the hot glue and pull it taut with both hands, being careful not to touch the hot glue. And then just do that completely around the clothespin. If you need to press onto it, use a toothpick. And then once it's done and set, then I can trim it off. And there you have it. And here are 5 of them completed with the chenille stems in them. I moved the camera around a little bit so that you could see this process a little better. And you may figure out a technique that works better for you, but mostly I just hold the doll or the clothespin in my hand with the face facing me, and I figure out where the tutu is going to go. And here I'm just pulling the gather a little bit tighter as it had kind of gone down towards the end of the lace or the tulle. Then I place the tulle or the lace on top of where I am going to place it and then slide it down a little bit with my hands, holding it there, and put a thin bead of hot glue just mostly just in the front, and then secure it down and then do the other parts of the skirt. If I need to hold it down better, I use some toothpicks because remember, this is hot glue and there is no, even if it was fabric, it would be hot and would burn you, but this is really nothing between my fingers and the hot glue. So then I go ahead and I do the rest of the skirt, and a lot of times I can just hold the skirt taut and it will get caught up in that glue and dry. And then I just clean up the back of it, either by cutting it or folding it over and putting more glue on it. And I need to figure out a way to make a cleaner edge or a cleaner looking product at the end. But for my tree, for right now, this is working for me. So and then I just kind of fluff the skirt up make sure that if anything needs to be trimmed, then I carefully trim it. That was a little ragged edge there, so I trim that. And then now I am going to put the pipe cleaner through the holes for her arms. And some of these holes are a little tricky because the wood and the paint has kind of sealed them off again. But if you keep on scraping with your fingernail and pushing with the chenille pipe cleaner, it will get the job done. But you can see that I am bending it quite a bit in the process. Some were easier than others, that's for sure. So I finally get the chenille stem through. And remember, we've cut these all in half. And then, so I make sure that it's equal on both sides, and then pull it up like has both of her arms in the air, and then I twist it because I am going to use this to hang it or to put a hanger on it. So if you wanted to position the arms differently, you could certainly do that, but you would have to make sure that you secured like a little loop of thread or metallic wire or something under her bun, maybe, or make a little loop, drill a little loop in her head for that. So there's lots of different ways that you can hang these. And so we're spinning around here and doing a little dance. And I have one left, and I will do the same with that, and I will be done. The only thing left to do, if you want, and I don't have any makeup blush, but if you have some blush, then I would just take a Q-tip and just lightly put that in your makeup, and then powder some cheeks onto them. You could use paint if you wanted, but I am not feeling secure enough with my painting abilities to do it without ruining the whole thing. And blush works really well. I've done it on painted items before, and it looks really nice, and it works well. These are not as fluffy and flouncy as the first tutu that I tried, but I like them better. And whoops, I broke the toothpick. So here you have clothespin ballerinas to use as Christmas ornaments. These would work out well if you have a ballerina in your life to give them to that person, either as a gift or on a gift as part of the gift tag, it would make a cute decoration. It would look cute in a car hanging from a rear mirror. It would look cute in a room. It would look cute hanging from a ceiling fan switch. Lots of different ways that you can give this other than just hanging it on a tree. And I have seen them on Etsy for $25 per clothespin, and that's probably how much I paid for all of the supplies to make 14 or more of them. I still have enough supplies to make maybe 10 more. I thought that this would work better than it did. I've done it before on other wooden craft projects where I have taken makeup blush and put it on the cheeks of the figure that I'm doing, and it shows up. It might have just been the colors on this, but it didn't show up very well, and it might have just been that the space that I'm working with is very small on this. But if you wanted to paint on cheeks, you could. I used the darker blush, and it shows up a little bit, and it gives it a little bit of a shine. It's entirely up to you whether you like this look or whether you think, why bother because you can't tell. Maybe with a darker blush it would show. You can use a cotton swab or your little pinky finger to apply this to the ballerina cheeks. So now I got my Christmas tree set up and I am ready to decorate it. I have several options here. I can either do a nutcracker tree with the soldiers that I have already. I purchased some garland that looks like candy at Michael's earlier this year, and I can either make a nutcracker tree. It would be cute if you did all of the different characters from the ballet, or I can just do a pink, silver, gold ballerina type tree, which I did end up taking the nutcrackers off, or the soldiers that I'm calling nutcrackers off, to just make a pink ballerina tree. Thank you so much for joining me as I did this craft. Please hit the like button or subscribe to my channel or leave a comment. I would appreciate it. I hope that you have a very Merry Christmas. Bye-bye.